Well, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, we're running a little bit behind, but I want to go ahead and get us started. My name is Ethan Collier, and I'll be chairing today's meeting at the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. So I've got some opening comments that I normally do, but I'm going to skip those and jump straight into the agenda so that we can cover a couple things, and then I'll circle back to my opening comments. So jumping right into the agenda, we're going to first take the item from old business that's on our agenda. It's case 2024-0069. Is there any opposition present? This is located at 5575 Cassandra Smith Road. Is there any opposition present? Okay. And is the applicant present? All right. And my understanding is that you're wishing to defer this case. And how long are you wishing to defer it for? 30 days. We do have. Okay, we do have a motion to defer for 30 days, and it has been properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then also on our agenda is it's item 17 on our agenda. It's case 12024. I guess that's 2024-0122. And it's located in the 700 block of Valley Bridge Road. And it has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. If you're here in opposition to that case, can you raise your hand? Okay, fantastic. And is the applicant here? Is the applicant present? Okay. And my understanding is that you want to withdraw this case? Okay. The applicant wants to withdraw the case. They've not come up to the microphone. If y'all would like them to, I'm sure they can ask them. Can you come up to the mic? State your name and address for the record.
My name is Justin Johnson. I live at 13355 Endless View in Saudi Daisy, Tennessee.
And in regards to case 2024-0122, you want to withdraw that case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion to withdraw, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, if you're here in opposition to that case, it is no longer on our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, since there's so much opposition here, just to be clarified, it has been withdrawn. It doesn't mean the applicant cannot come back and apply again for a different zone in the future. So just watch for the signs if he chooses to do that. It's withdrawn. No action moving forward at this time.
So you're welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting.
Yes.
All right, folks, if you could, please work your way out of the room as quickly and quietly as possible so that we can get back to our meeting. And then if you are the last one to exit that door in the back, please make sure to shut the door behind you. So for those of you who are sticking around for the remainder of our meeting, I want to go over what are our traditional opening comments and announcements. So Planning Commission has received this packet in the mail a little over a week ago, and planning commissions had the opportunity to review it in advance of today's meeting. And so from time to time throughout the meeting, we will actually move very quickly. So make sure you have a copy of the agenda there in front of you and you follow along closely. For the remainder of the meeting, we will be on the agenda, and I'll take each item in its order. So what I'll do is I'll read off the case number. Oftentimes I'll reference the agenda number, and I will tell everybody what the staff recommendation is. I will ask if there's any opposition here. What you can tell is that from time to time, we do have a great deal of opposition in these cases. If you're here and you're a neighbor, or you have some sort of question, or you have some concerns, even though you might not think of yourself as opposition, but you want to speak, make sure to raise your hand so that I can see that you're here. Because sometimes if we have a staff recommendation to approve and there's no opposition, we will actually take action without hearing the case. So please make sure to raise your hand if you're here in opposition. If we do have opposition on a case and we're going to hear it, then what we'll do is we'll hear first from the staff, then we'll hear from the applicant. The applicant will have 7 minutes at the microphone. Make sure to state your name and address for the record. And then after we hear from the applicant, we'll have the opportunity to hear from the opposition. The total time allotted for opposition is 9 minutes. Sometimes there's more than one person that wants to speak. There might be 6 or 7 people that want to speak. So I will sometimes have to interrupt people to make sure that we can see and hear from everybody that wants to speak. So if you're here and you're in opposition and you want to speak, make sure that when the time comes for opposition to speak, that you actually get out of your chair and line up here on the right side of the room behind the microphone here so that I can see how many people want to speak. After we've heard from opposition, the applicant will have 2 minutes to respond to the comments. All the conversation that takes place today will be between those people that make up the planning commission, my fellow commissioners here, and the person at the microphone. So if you have a question and you're at the microphone, you direct those questions to the planning commission. And if planning commission has questions, they'll direct those to staff or the applicant or the opposition. So with that, we'll jump into the agenda. Mr. Schultz, is there anything else that we need
No, I
to
think
know?
you covered everything.
Okay. First case on our agenda, item 1, is SD 2024-0052, and this is a preliminary plat located at 7839 McDade Road. And it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? All right. And is the applicant present? All right. We do have some opposition, Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This plat was before this body last month. It was deferred due to the location of these 2 entrance roads. Because it's more than 200 lots, you have to have a secondary entrance approved by the fire marshal because of the spacings. The fire marshal did approve these spacings as shown on the plat on the screen. And because of that approval from the fire marshal's office, we recommend to approve this preliminary plat subject to the conditions that are in the staff report that need to be changed on the plan.
Mr. Price.
Thank you. Mike Price, MAP Engineers, and just confirming what Brian has said, we are in agreement with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Ma'am, you've spoken in the past in opposition to this case? Okay. Are you going to tell us something today that you haven't told us previously? Okay.
So section 402 of the Hamilton County subdivision regulations say residential projects having more than 200 dwelling units shall provide 2 separate and approved fire apparatus access roads pursuant to International Fire Code Appendix D. The PUD plan did receive a recommendation, even though it did not meet that requirement. They're supposed to be 1,400 feet and they're only 447 feet. It did go before the Construction Board of Appeals. It was denied a variance. The vote was 4-1. There was no alternative safety measure presented. The Hamilton County Commission did approve an amendment to this, but the resolution says at the discretion of the fire code official, the remoteness requirement could be reduced because of the location of property, topography, waterways, non-negotiable grades, or similar conditions. The property has 800 feet of road frontage on Ottawa Georgetown Road. At the November Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Price said that if you put the driveways the farthest point north and south, some 700 feet apart, he wouldn't meet the fire code. but now the fire code has been changed. The amendment also says the fire apparatus access road shall provide remoteness to achieve the maximum distance technically feasible, shall being mandatory. So if the variance is allowed by the fire code official, the road still must achieve the maximum distance technically feasible. It is technically feasible to place these entrances 700 feet apart. Mr. Price said as much. There's no streams or steep slopes within the 800 feet of road frontage. The south entrance would be offset by 150 feet from a subdivision across from it, which is common in Hamilton County. Sometimes they're right across from each other. So that's not an issue. If homes can be built at the north and south ends of the road frontage, then a road could be constructed there too. It seems the only reason the entrances are not 700 feet apart is a design choice, which is not one of the reasons listed for the fire official to reduce the distance. When the fire code amendment was approved several weeks ago, the fire marshal said it's still got to go to the RPA to get approval as well. The entrances are supposed to be 1,400 feet, they're only 447 feet. They may already be receiving a variance, reducing the distance, but these entrances are not the maximum distance technically feasible. So even if the fire marshal has approved this, the entrances do not meet the parameters in the newly adopted amendment, which is required in the subdivision regulations. So this plat does not meet the subdivision regulations. And we would like to know why it is being approved if it is. Section 101.3 of the subdivision regulations says, it is intended that these regulations shall, which is mandatory, supplement and facilitate the enforcement of the provisions and standards contained in one of those, and in one of those that it's supposed to facilitate is the zoning ordinances. Section 107 of the zoning ordinances lists which development plans cause property rights to vest, as set forth in the Tennessee Code. One is the approval of a special permit by the Hamilton County Commission, which includes a PUD. And that is also what the Tennessee Code says. So does this mean this PUD is supposed to follow the fire code requirements that were in place at the time it was approved? Because this PUD did not meet the fire code requirements in Appendix D when it was approved, nor does it seem to meet the requirements in the recently approved fire code amendment. Subdivision Regulations Section 500 requires several statements on the preliminary plat, and this plat includes those statements. This PUD has already entered a vesting period according to zoning regulations in the Tennessee Code, and the current subdivision regulations require certain statements on the preliminary plat as well as the final plat. The plat says no building permit is to be issued for a residential, commercial, or industrial building on a community lot. The lot to be used for recreational purposes only, maintenance assumed by the developer, until the lot is deeded to homeowners in the subdivision or in a homeowners or to a homeowners association. The plat also says community lots to be used for stormwater management or open space or recreational purposes only. And the community lot shall be maintained by the homeowners association. So how can a building permit be issued for commercial buildings on a community lot, that being community lot 204? And are the homeowners or homeowners association going to own community lot 204 that includes the commercial buildings? If this plat is approved, it seems like this would be a good question for maybe the courts to decide, because it's not in line with what these subdivision regulations say. Section 101.3 of the subdivision regulations says it is intended that these regulations shall, mandatory word again, supplement and facilitate the enforcement of the provisions and standards contained in, and one of those listed is the comprehensive plan. Section 101.3 also says the existing proposed public improvement shall, mandatory word, conform to and be properly related to the proposal shown in. One of those lists is the comprehensive plan. The Wolf Deaver plan is an extension of the comprehensive plan, and it says 3 per acre. This PUD is 3.4 per acre. The plan says the density for a PUD can be increased if substantial usable open space is provided. The plan defines open space as 30 to 80%. This PUD has only about 20% in open space. The plan says townhomes are supposed to be beside the interior, and they're not. The preliminary plat has at least one error on it still. And the subdivision regulations say that corrections should be made before the plat is placed on the Planning Commission agenda for consideration. The plat says the PUD has a maximum of 229 single-family and 62 townhomes, which is incorrect. It's supposed to be a maximum of 229 residential units, being a maximum of 62 townhome units. So that does not coincide with what the resolution says. There are several sections of the subdivision regulations that this preliminary plat does not meet. So if this plat is approved, we would first like to hear an explanation as to why it is being approved and why these sections of the subdivision regulations would not be followed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What's the will of the commission? Mike does have 2 minutes.
So let me first state that this body, as well as the county commission, approved the plat and the rezoning that is before you, that's represented by the plat. Secondly, the fire marshal has sent us emails and has confirmed he is in agreement with this plat as it relates to the relationship and the distance between the driveways. Given that, there may be some errors as it relates to notes, but typically those get handled by staff when we get to final plat status. And so based on that, I still ask for approval of the request.
And just to clarify, RPA, the Planning Commission, doesn't have any authority to approve the fire code variances. That's that body, not this body's responsibility, nor staff.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next case on the agenda is HCSD 24-3. And this is a preliminary plat for lots 123 through 90, lots 123. It looks like it's located at 9012, 9016, and 0 Rado Road. And it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, case, the one you just read off, that's a variance to the street standards.
Okay,
The plat's next.
gotcha. All right. Mr. Price.
So the request is, as it relates to variances for the road construction, the road will be built to the standards as it relates to the pavement sections as required by county, so that fire trucks and other heavy vehicles can travel on it at the same operation that you can on public roads. What I would point out, the reason that we're asking for these variances is the intent is now to sell each of those in fee simple. If the request is denied, we'll go back to a rental community. So I would think, given the outcry that we heard from some of the neighborhood meetings, is that they would all prefer this to be a for sale community. So if you grant these variances, we'll be able to move forward as a for sale development. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Lehman.
Yeah, so Mike, what's the variance that's being requested relative to the current subdivision requirements for a public road street standards?
And they're on the screen.
Okay, because I didn't see it in my packet. so
It's to the typical, it's actually 5, 6. Once the road cross section, reducing the right-of-way width from 50 to 35 feet for a private access easement right-of-way. Cul-de-sac requirement to be waived in lieu of a hammerhead turnaround on short street sections. Minimum 100-foot center line curvature reduced to 28 foot. Then center line offset of adjacent intersections to be reduced from 125 to 52 feet. And then reduced corner radii from 25 feet to 15 feet.
So the request is for these 6 variances for a public road, which in essence you'll request those fee simple.
Correct. And now I would also point out that the previous design has a for rent development. All these we can do without requesting said variances. So the
And-
plan,
Well, and the reason being that they would be private roads still meeting the fire code.
that's correct.
So I didn't see my packet. Was there an approval from staff?
Yes,
relative
staff reviewed it and recommend to approve.
recommend to approve the variance? Variance?
Yes,
Okay.
the
thank you.
fire marshal's involved in all that, and transportation didn't have any concerns either.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Price. If you're here in opposition, you wish to speak, come on up to the microphone. State your name and address for the record.
Dwayne Pitts, 9769 Sanborn Drive. Have a problem with the reducing the radius of the corners down so tight. We still have 40 and 45-foot fire trucks have to make these turns. So we kind of like to take an exception to the reducing the radius of the corners.
Thank you. And are you with the fire department? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
Tri-Community Fire Department serves this area.
thank you.
My comments are more about the plat itself being approved, so should I just wait for that? Or you can do that separately?
We will do it separately.
Okay, I'll just wait.
Thank you.
What I would ask is for approval of the first 5, and then we'll work with Chief Pitts and then bring before this body next month, that last one that's agreeable to the commission.
Thank you.
Let me just ask one more question. So that would push off this second vote on the plat, correct? Because the plat shows, I'm assuming, the 15-foot radiuses. So we would agree to these 4 or make a recommendation on the 4 and then bring both. I mean, I guess my question is the preliminary plat has those reduced radii, correct?
Well, I think 2 things. One is 5 conditions that you would be approving, not 4.
Correct.
Okay, and then secondly is that the preliminary plat still can be approved. We still have to get, before that plat goes to final, the last issue worked out. So even if it's shown as a smaller radii, it's not approved, or you can make that subject to.
We'll make that subject to when we discuss the plat. So I make a motion to approve 5, the first 5 on the sheet for variance, not approve the reduction in the corner radii.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. In the next case on our agenda, Mr. Schultz, we've got opposition here to this preliminary plat.
Yes, with those variances being approved as they were, it meets the requirements subject to, I think in the staff report, there's 14 items that need to be corrected on that plat. Most of them are typical notes and coordination of things, labeled, which is typical plats we see every month.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Price?
No comments other than that we will get those corrected.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, did you wish to speak on this preliminary plat?
I think we're approved, if this body approves, so approve this plat, subject to those 5 variances that got granted. The plat will have to come back and comply with the 25-foot radius unless the variance is granted next month or the previous month by this body.
When this plat was first approved, a resident received an email from Mr. Price that said that this development would be for sale. Then an amendment was proposed to this PUD, which had more townhomes and less single-family homes. And the area at the front toward Georgetown Road was more of an open area. And one of the reasons was because of not having as much impact on the sinkholes. From what we understand, these sinkholes will be the drainage for the stormwater ponds. And then another pipe will go all the way up Georgetown Road to the stream. And we're questioning how does that in line with the Hamilton County Water Quality Department best management practices. Also, which the subdivision regulations say must be followed. Also, the Tennessee Code just passed an amendment to disclosures. And it says that before property is sold, the property owner, they must notify the property owner that there are sinkholes on the property. The property owners must sign a disclosure statement saying that, okay, we know this, there's a sinkhole on the property, we've been told. So since that community lot will be owned by the homeowners, are they going to be notified about these sinkholes on this property? And is that going to be included anywhere on a subdivision plat or anything? Subdivision regulations do say 25-foot setback should be shown from all property, homes, dwellings, things like that. So is that also going to be the case for this community lot? Will the homeowners who are eventually going to be in charge of this community lot and this stormwater drainage system, will they be informed about the sinkholes on that property? So those are the questions that we have about this. And it was always supposed to be a for sale property. That's what the residents were told. We even have an email one resident still has saying it's supposed to be a for sale property. So just want to make sure to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
So the development does meet both state and county water quality requirements. And if there's such requirements as it relates to notification on a sinkhole and the residents, we'll make certain that it's on the final plat. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Just to confirm, Mr. Price, that you do have an injection well permit through TDEC, correct? Issued through TDEC.
We do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Just important to clarify that it is subject to the 5 variances that were earlier approved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you.
Next case on our agenda is HCSD 24-5. This is a final plat for water color phase 2, 82 lots located at 8300 Block Lake Scene Court, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Mr. Price?
No comments.
What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 on our agenda is HCSD-24-6, and this is the final plat for Sweetbriar Phase 2, 36 lots located at 6424 Snow Hill Road. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is HCSD-24-8. This is a final plat for 45 lots located at 11400 Block Armstrong Road, and it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7 is HCSD-24-9. This is a preliminary plat. It's 349 lots located at 3120 Bill Jones Road, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 on our agenda is HCSD-24-10. This preliminary plat at Prairie Pass Phase 7, 41 lots located at 10802 East Brainerd Road. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Yes. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is item 9, SDP-24-23, and this is a final plat located 6860 Stanford Gap Road, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SDP-24-24. It's preliminary plat located at Stonewall Farms Villages Phase 2. It's 87 lots at 7023 Hickson Pike, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11 is SDP-24-25. It's preliminary plat. It's 27 lots located at 811 O'Grady Drive, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12 is SDP-24-26. And this is preliminary and final plat. It's located at 2225 Hickory Valley Road. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 13 is SDP-24-27. This is preliminary and final plat located at 1811 Terry Lane Drive, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our one item under old business has already been covered. First item under new business is case 2024-0106, and this is located at 66.
Mr. Chairman, there is one other item under old business, top of the page. 2024-0086.
It's just too bad. We're not going to hear it today. I am seeing that now. Thank you. It's case 2024-0086. It's located at 600 West Main Street and 1601 Reggie White Boulevard. And it's a rezone from UIX4 to DCX20, and it was deferred from June. Staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Thank you. All right, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, this case was deferred last month. Again, this is a request to rezone from U, which is the urban context, IX4, which is industrial mixed use, 4 stories height, to a new context, which is the downtown commercial mixed use zones of CX of 20 and a CX of 8. And the 8 and 20 are the heights. And you can see on the screen, the 20 is to the parcel abutting 27, Highway 27, and to the right, there's a blue line that comes down the middle. That's proposed for DCX 8. Roughly 9 acres in size. Proposed is a mixed-use development, 350 units. That's a density of 39 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map, there is no downtown context area near this vicinity. It's pretty much the downtown core, if you will, where that's located at. So this would be a new context area in this general vicinity. This site was rezoned from M1 in 2016 to the reform-based code, again, which is UIX4. Here's an aerial view. It's the former Eureka Foundry site, which is vacant. To the north is a vacant right-of-way. To the west is, of course, Highway 27. To the south is mixed use and cricket, used to be cricket, but being what's called now. You have the skate park and the Finley Stadium and parking lot to the east of the site across Reggie White Boulevard. Here's a view of the site from Main Street. This is a view of the site from Reggie White Boulevard. Another view of the site from Reggie White Boulevard. This is northeast of the site. This is southwest of the site. And this is east of the site. This property is located in one of our older plans, which is the downtown plan, which is adopted in 2006. Some of the goals of the plan was to encourage redevelopment of large industrial sites to office and housing, integrate a diversity of housing stock, include retail development on the ground floor, sidewalks, and finally, the very last bullet says, in the central business core, tall buildings are prevalent and a greater height can be accommodated. The maximum building height in the core should be 200 feet. Moving outward from the core, the maximum building height should be lesser height, 48 feet, to provide continuity with a lower scale of residential areas and neighborhood commercial centers. Again, that plan's it's 2006, so it's things have changed since then. Here's a view of some information that was provided by the applicant, some of the site plan materials, some charrette type renderings they provided, more charrette renderings that were provided by the applicant. One of the site plans showing to the west of this, to the left of this picture, the west is 27. To the right of the picture is Reggie White Boulevard. You can see it's a mixture of buildings on this property, the Eureka Foundry. Another rendering of the site. There's another rendering showing a larger scale Finley Stadium and the Chattanooga Market to the south. There was a renderings that was provided as of this morning of what this would look like. 27 is just beyond. And interesting to note in this picture, if you look behind, you see taller buildings. Well, that's form-based code doesn't allow those taller buildings in the back. I think that's max 7 stories. Some of those look to be taller. There's another rendering. You see Finley Stadium and the site, just the left-hand side of this screen, what that would look like with a 20-story building on site. Here's another view looking towards Lookout Mountain. There's the view of the 20-story buildings on the site. The proposed use is compatible with downtown plan. One of the issues is the height. A 20-story building height is not compatible with adjacent development form of this area or the downtown plan goes. We're currently undergoing a citywide land use plan for the area. Identify areas where it would be appropriate to increase the density or increase the height or taller buildings. So staff took a conservative approach until that plan is adopted. So we're recommending something different than what the applicant requested, because this request would set the precedent for future requests of 20-story buildings in this area, or even that, the downtown core context for form-based code. This is current form-based codes in the area. You can see the site highlighted in the bluish pink color. It's currently a 4-story building. To the south, that's Finley Stadium. That's a civic zone of 6 stories. The parking lot to the east of the site, maximum height of 4 stories. Moving north, you can see the Convention Bureau site. That's a max of 6 stories. If you move to the northeast, which is across from the public library, that's the closest DCX 20 zone that you would have in this area. Now, the bend to the west does have one site that's proposed to be 20 stories, but that's one parcel along the river. But in this general area, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 stories, even 12. Nothing like 20 at this location. Moving south across 24, you can see this is the Chestnut Street heights. Those are 12 as well. They're capped along 24 and 27 at 12 stories. And I don't have a picture, but West Side Evolves to the west of this site, that was capped at 7 stories in form-based code. So that's where staff's coming from on a recommendation. Again, the downtown plan ideas, the central business district is being surrounded or bounded by 4th Street to the south, to the north, 12th Street to the south, Lindsay Street to the east, and 27 to the west. That's the downtown core where you'd see taller buildings. Again, the things have changed since that plan was adopted. Higher heights have been increased. The proposed DCX 20 is not compatible. The plan goes of concentrating height in the core of the area. There are no 8 or 20-story buildings at this location. So staff recommends to deny the applicant's request and approve DCX 8 and DCX 12 as those cap the heights in this general area.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? All right.
Hello. Sorry. Caitlin Sims, Lavelle Associates. I am here representing the developer. I'm sure that the master planner last month gave a very overarching view of this site and what we're trying to provide here. And I kind of looked at the concerns that were voiced by this commission. A lot of which I, sitting in the audience last time, I understood where they were coming from. So in the last 30 days since this has been deferred, let me tell you what I've found. Traffic and parking were one of the things that were brought up that I believe is a great thing to be looking at. So Chattanooga actually requires TIS impacts at certain different levels. So there's no argument about this site going over 120 units. So this site will absolutely require a traffic impact study. That's by code. You have to work with CDOT on that. On a site this large, that's going to look at the next 5 to 7 years of build at, you're not looking at just one traffic study. You're probably looking at a phased traffic study. So day one, all the improvements for the entire site won't be installed, but it'll be installed in phases over time, and look at what that build out changes over time with economics and other things like that. Parking's the same way. Parking's going to depend on what mixed use is implemented in this area. Is it retail? Is it office? Is it residential? Is it hospitality? All of those require different parking levels. So parking will be more closely studied when the plan gets through zoning and actually gets into a full design. One of the great things about form-based code is they have rules that are for all zones. One of the great rules for all zones is anything over 3.5 acres has to provide a street network that is approved by CDOT. I think that's a really great part of the zone. So section 38.739 actually brings that into code and talks about maximum block lengths and sites that are required to meet different things, and it must be approved by CDOT. So I think, again, though there are already plans from the master development to add infrastructure, to add those block links, to add that connectivity throughout not just this development, but into existing development, I think those concerns can kind of be quashed by just our existing codes that are here. Another concern was brought up about the mixed use of the site, or the uses and maybe different ones. I think right now we aren't at a point where we can commit to certain square footages of restaurant or retail or whatnot, but the full intent is that this will be a mixed use site. This is an area right now that is only used for entertainment. I'm sure many of us go to the markets on Sunday. I've been to my fair share of CFC games and other events in this area, but otherwise, I mean, it's a rare day that I get caught in this area. So I would love to go to a restaurant or come up the Riverwalk and use the greenway that is planned to, have shopping, retail, and pedestrian parks and areas. So I think the uses there will definitely, be driven by the development, but also are going to be mixed use overall. So it's not just going to be residential. It's not just going to be hospitality. You're going to see a full mix of uses there. Additionally, the uses will also support the surrounding entertainment. So I think that'll be really great to go to the market on Sunday, grab some vegetables, and then head over and grab lunch. Last but not least, height. I'm sure everyone on this commission has thought about the height since last month, and I have to say I have as well. Commissioner Lyle, I think you brought up a lot of great points last month. There is scenic beauty here, and we do need to look at, not compromising the skyline. We did provide some renderings. Brian, if you could flip to maybe the one looking toward either. We did provide some renderings that I think really give you a different sight line. We're not looking to do 20 stories across the entire 9 acres. It's only a small portion, not quite half the site, that we're looking at doing 20 stories. And really, it's to step down. So it's really only the portion of the site that's going to be closest to 27 that will be in that 20-story range, and then stepping down from there. I was surprised to learn, as driving through multiple times by the site, that the billboard sitting on the site today is 12 stories. That is not something that necessarily prevents anybody's view of anything. But I found that to be a great geographical marker of how we discuss height nowadays. It's hard just to see from renderings because vantage points differ. If I'm standing on Main Street, I'm only 5 foot, but trust me, I cannot see Lookout Mountain to save my life. But I think, depending on where you are in town, I don't think this development is going to have any negative impact on the skyline. I think we're looking at, I think in the map Brian showed, it's just slightly to the west that the bin is at 20 stories. And their acreage at 20 stories is actually larger than our acreage that we're looking for. So the precedent is already set. We're just kind of following an impact. We're not really blocking anything besides 27, possibly a little bit of the interchange, but I think that's kind of nice from my vantage point. One of the great things about this site is that there are some surrounding developments. The Bend is one that we've all heard and talked about, as well as US Pipe. And everybody's looking at embracing height at this point. And when land is as scarce as it is today, we've got to start, accepting that maybe this is a game-changing plan. Maybe this is, a new mixed-use node. But it doesn't mean it's not a good thing for Chattanooga. Overall, I really think, we will get more and more comfortable with height as time progresses. Overall, this is, the longest running foundry. We want to take the historic preservation of a few different buildings that are typically around 1 story and utilize the back of the site, which doesn't have some of those buildings for that height there. So I can understand kind of the concerns. Sorry. Any questions I'm here for.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any questions?
So I'm curious, I'm seeing DCX 8 and DCX 20, and the renderings look like the smaller buildings are 6 feet or 6 stories, maybe 7 stories in those renderings. I'm just curious why the decision to do the split level height rather than just ask for the whole site to be DCX 12 and avoiding the height conversation as a general rule.
I think that's a good point. So part of the thing is to step down over time. So if you go back to the first rendering, thank you. I think this shows it a little bit better at how we're, looking to put the large mass along 27 and then stair stepping that down the closer you get to Reggie White and Main Street. I think that makes sense on this style of development. We're not going to, as you get closer to the street level, you'll come down in height instead of feeling like you're walking downtown where everything's very, very tall everywhere. The other part of this is that there is historic preservation involved. Those buildings, capping those at 1 story, somewhere you've got to make up for that, right? Really, we're predominantly looking at 3 buildings along 27 that would be 20 story. And we're saving 4 buildings that are all about 1 story. So if you take, the delta of that, we're still under the same stories than across the site. But it is important to us to preserve kind of that scenic beauty we talk about. Chattanooga is an industrial city. We are an adaptive reuse city. We've seen lots of people do it very well. And I think this site could be another great add.
Any other questions for the applicant? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not so much a question as a comment. Caitlin, I very much appreciate your presentation. I still will agree with staff that I think 12 is high enough. I've heard a fairly large outpouring of people from the community that have reached out to me after that article was run in the Times Free Press, kind of saying that they felt the same way. And so I may be the only no, but I'll be voting no or for the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Comment or a question to the staff, I guess. We had this same debate, I think, when the bin was trying to get to 20 stories, and then I guess the one by the library as well, right? Didn't we have this exact same conversation, and we landed with the 20 stories was appropriate in those situations. I mean, this to me looks like a marquee development. I think that it's obviously been thoughtful, and it's also, part of the deal is it's got to make financial sense. I mean, and part of this is, I'm sure it was well thought out is how many units they needed to get. And I actually appreciate the fact that they're stepping down towards the road, so it's not so overwhelming at the road. And so for that reason, if it's appropriate, I'd like to move to approve the request of the applicant.
We have a motion to approve the applicant's request, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion on that?
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Long and Mr. Anderson.
I do agree with you in part, Commissioner Payne. Well, the part about the importance of the number of large scale developments that we have around town at this moment, and the future, what the future of this community looks like. And I think 20 stories is very appropriate in the downtown core. I don't think this is a good precedent to set here. But I'm an 8th generation Tennessean. I'm not going anywhere else. I got my daughters are 9th, and I want to tell them in the 10th, if it ever happens, that I voted with where I felt my passions and my convictions are. So I'm gonna.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Caitlin, for the presentation, and Chris for working with us over the last month. I made the motion to defer last month, and it was because I wanted to pursue this with a great intention before we approve a 20-story building anywhere new in our city. We have a few others. This wouldn't be the only one. It wouldn't be the only one approved by this planning commission, as Barry pointed out. But the concerns about the view shed are warranted. I think they'd be more warranted in another location. We've looked at this from a lot of different angles. And as far as the administration is concerned, we have no reservations about 20 stories on this site. Doesn't mean we'd go 20 stories on every site in downtown. Not everything makes sense everywhere. But, we talk about density every month, and everybody up here understands we need more housing, we need more density, and we need growth. And people are coming here, and we should take that as a compliment. But we got to plan for it. And this is what density looks like. It's here, so there's less in the suburbs. We've got to have greater urban density. Chattanooga is growing up as a city. And I think up against Highway 27, which people don't necessarily want to look at, is a perfect location for 20 stories, especially stepped down. I know a lot of other details need to be worked out, but I appreciate the additional information from the applicant, and I'm proud to support the applicant's request.
We do have a motion, and it was seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, first item under new business is case 2024-0106, and this is located at 664 Sand Switch Road, and it has a staff recommendation to approve a rezoning request from R1 to R5. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is 2024-0107, and this is located at 7518 Stanford Gap Road. It has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions an application to rezone from M1 to RTZ, 0 lot line. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Is the applicant present? And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, that was with conditions.
It was. Okay. Next case, item 3 on our agenda is 2024-0108. It's located at 7437 Shallowford Road. This case has a staff recommendation to approve a rezoning request from R1 to RTZ. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to, oh, ma'am, you're here in opposition? Well, it's currently not subject to this application. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on our agenda, item 4, 2024-0109 is located at 3406 Ottawa Ringgold Road. It's an application to rezone from A1 and R2 to R1, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present?
So we, Mike Price, MAP Engineers, we do have a alternative plan that we would like to present for action today. Yeah, wow, that worked quick. What is being passed to you is a revised plan. We went from 43 units down to 33 units. What was determined to be on the property is a waters of the state, which reduced the density. So the request at this point going forward is for approval of 33 lots, not 43 lots.
Is there any opposition here? Yes. Mr. Lehman?
So Mike, I mean, the first one, if I'm reading correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, the first one is a rezone with a, you don't, this is the PUD plan, correct? The addition on the PUD plan. So all I'm asking is, I'm assuming the initial case, the 2024-109, which is asking for the rezoning, would be first, and then this is associated with the second case.
Correct, but I felt it important for you to see what's being proposed overall as it relates to that.
Understood.
And the condition on that rezoning case, you've got no comment on?
I think the
This is-
condition is for the PUD approval.
Yeah, I did
conditioned
not
on the
have
PUD
any,
approval.
other than I think that the number should be changed from 43 down to 34, just to note that when the time comes, or 33 when the time comes.
Okay. In regards to case 2024-0109, we have a staff recommendation to approve with conditions and an applicant that's fine with those conditions. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation, and I did hear a second to my right. All in favor? Any discussion? Sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And in regards to case 2024-0110, which is a request for residential plan unit development located at 3406 Ottawa Ringgold Road, has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions, and the applicant has requested that those conditions be modified to.
A total of 33 units. And secondly, the language as it relates to the type C landscape buffer. Given these changes, what I would ask is that it would state the following. Proposed planting of type 1 trees along the southern boundary from Ooltewah-Ringgold Road to where the property no longer fronts the private drive along the southern boundary, and along the northern boundary from Ooltewah-Ringgold Road to the stream buffer, have trees planted at 30 feet on center, which is reflected on the attached plan provided to staff and to this commission.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Mike, just a question. I just noticed 33 is listed twice. Should it be 33 or 34? I guess is my question.
Mike, you've got a question.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Is it 33 or 34? On the plan itself, there's 34 squares, but they're 33 is listed twice. So I just want to make sure we get that right.
There are 2 community lots, so 33 is the correct number of buildable homes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to show you. This is the site plan or PUD plan that staff received for the PUD. I'm just now looking at this for the first time. If you see on this site plan here, the PUD plan, even though we had a recommendation to approve, there were some issues with this on the screen PUD plan. Some of those lots, which is lots 37 through 44, fronted on an alley, and then lots 15 through 18 fronted on a private right of way. Those don't meet the subregs requirements. And also looking at this now, just briefly looking here, 24 through 29 front on a private alley as well. According to subregs, lots whose only access is a private alley are not permitted in the county. So that would have to change as well to a full-blown public street, is my understanding.
Or it could be a private drive or private road, which we do all the time in PUD. So change an acronym from alley to road, private road.
Can you front less than 5 acres on a private?
I'm not sure how big these lots are.
Some lots are 5 acres, some are under, probably acre and a half. But again, this body multiple times has approved lots on private roads and under 5 acres.
So the request is for that included, and this would be to variance from that, correct? Brian,
That's
if
in
we
the
voted on
subregs.
this.
That's not a PUD. It's not something the PUD could waive.
Okay, so it'd be a
The
variance.
PUD is basically waiving the lot frontage and lot size.
So it'd be a variance. It would require variance for this PUD plan.
When that plat comes in, you can't, there's not a variance to the plan.
Okay. So what kind of vested interest does it give him if
It does vest. Once it's approved by the county commissioner of planning, commission, it would vest the rights to follow the current standards as in place.
even though they violate the subdivision
Yes,
regulations?
you have to get a variance for those.
So can we make it subject to that? Can you do a PUD approval?
You know, it's hard to see this when they first come in with a matter of 2 seconds to look at this. It makes it difficult on staff, you know. I don't know how you do that.
Is it possible we could table this for a month?
I would ask that it go forward before the commission. There's time to talk with staff between now and county commission.
Well, I appreciate, and I'm going to ask again. It's 2:00. We're going to probably be here when Mike's at home at dinner. Mike brought this in 10 minutes ago. Whenever he got up to the podium, I'm just asking, we've had this happen before. You're not supposed to bring a plat or any kind of revised document to a zoning hearing. So I'd ask that he table it until next month.
I'm willing to make that motion. Move to defer
Second.
30 days.
We have a motion to defer for 30 days and it has been seconded. Any discussion on that?
I would just like to point out that staff does not let you submit revised plans prior to coming to the meeting. So it puts you in a rather difficult box as it relates to if you have amendments to the plan. So if staff would like to change their approach and let revised plans go before so that they can consider those before it gets to this body, that would certainly be helpful as we look at trying to work through plans and discussions such as this.
Thank you, Mr. Price. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Price, I will remind you that there's time on our agenda for non-agenda comment on non-agenda items if you want to actually stick around to the very.
I have my last case at the end. So regardless, I'm going to
Okay,
be
so
here.
you'll be
I guess
here,
we'll
right?
all have dinner together, right?
There you go. All right. Item 6 on our agenda is case 2024-0111. And this is located at 2277 Ooltewah-Ringgold Road. And it's an application that has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions for rezoning requests from A1 and R2 to R1. Is there any opposition present? Mr. Schultz? Or I guess,
There is
Mr. Price.
opposition. You want me to go through it?
No, not necessarily. Mr. Price, are you the applicant on this?
I am the applicant. Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have comments in regards to these conditions?
We don't have any as it relates to the rezoning from A1 and R2A to R1. We don't have any comments as it relates to case 111.
Okay. We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. And that is the staff's recommendation, just to clarify.
Right. It's subject to the.
Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Price, do you have a new PUD plan for us?
No, it is the same plan that was submitted, but we do take exception to staff recommendations. One is that the reason that we showed a type C landscape buffer to the north is that is a large single-family tract. So we felt that a 10-foot type C landscape buffer was appropriate. But as it relates to the west, which is cross, boy, my time really runs fast up here. Crossgate Road, and as it relates to the southern boundary, we are adjoining residentially zoned property. I don't see that that's necessarily appropriate to put in a type C landscape buffer as staff recommended, buffering residential from residential, if you will. So what we would ask as a alternative is that leave the type C landscape buffer along the northern property line, and instead, as it relates to Boulevard Ringgold Road frontage and the southern boundary, that trees be planted at 25 feet on center.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Then the second item, which is we would not ask for a connection to Crossgate Road. This is a small development, being some 29 lots, and a secondary entrance is not necessary. Plus, grade change in through there would make that a little difficult. So we would ask that condition 2 be stricken.
Mr. Schultz, I think we should, I'm open to questions from the applicant, but I'd like to hear from staff.
Sure. I'll skip all the other stuff. But yeah, this is the PUD plan or site plan that was submitted with the request. Similar to the previous case, we have the same type condition landscape, just trying to be consistent in this area. That's why we went with buffer requirements between the north and southern section. And the reason for that connectivity Crossgate, it seems like what you'd want the connectivity, because it's right there, 2 cul-de-sacs, provide secondary access or some type of easier access to those residents of Crossgate to Udawal Ringgold Road was the thinking behind that condition. We didn't care where that happened as long as it happened somewhere on that side to Crossgate. But they would up to the developer's choice to pick which cul-de-sac would connect. Because both of them, I believe, actually the one to the south, proposed Lot A, that's a community lot. Looks like it'd be fairly simple to go ahead and connect that to Crossgate.
Thank you. Mr. Price, I do have a question for you, and then I'll give Mr. Lehman an opportunity to ask a question as well. So I'm just curious why a developer would be opposed to making that connection. I mean, I'm a developer, so I know some of that reasoning, but I just think it's helpful if you can speak to why you would not want to make that connection.
First of all, it creates this subdivision as being now a cut through, which it currently would not be with 29 homes. Secondly, it's not necessary or required by the fire code. Third, it's an unnecessary expense. And given the grade changes that you have between the developments that occur in through here, that's not as easy as one would imagine. So given those 4 reasons, we would ask that that condition be stricken, and it certainly would set a dangerous precedent as it relates to further developments moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Lehman.
Yeah, I was just going to add some context to that because it's starting to come up with that, which I think is most appropriate relative to a lot of dead-end public streets serving developments. I understand it's probably a discussion specifically on developments. I'm kind of unaware of the grade of the grade. There may be some grade change. I don't think it's absorbent, but as we start talking about services and effective connections relative to our transportation system, we're going to be looking at as we have the ability to connect for whether it be garbage service or bus service to schools or emergency services. We're gonna make that comment and recommendation, and we have done that on a couple of other developments as they've been presented to this body and county commission. So I'll be supporting that condition, that recommendation. Thank you.
Mr. Byrd.
Am I correct? I'm not as familiar with the Hamilton County subdivision regs. I know we discussed this at length in the city subdivision regs. This connectivity is not written into the Hamilton County subdivision regs currently, correct?
It is, but I think it's just something like we're deemed feasible by the planning commission.
Okay.
And that's on the subdivision plat. This is not a subdivision plat at this point. It's just a plat.
Right. Just trying to think through problems before we get to that point. And then if the landscape buffer, is this the landscape buffer pulled from code, or is this an additional landscape buffer that staff is recommending?
Additional buffer.
Additional buffer. Thank you.
Mr.
Let
Lehman
me
and
just
Mr. Payne.
add some, if it was required by the subdivision regs, it wouldn't be a condition. So as we step through revising subdivision requirements and regulations, and we start talking about how to better connect our public roadway system, that in essence, it's not a requirement. That's why it's listed here as a condition.
Right. And to Mr. Schultz's point, I think that language, where deemed feasible by the planning commission, makes me more comfortable, certainly, getting where you're coming from.
Mr. Payne.
Yep, I would say two things. First, it's not required, and requiring something that's not required, whatever you want to call it, is a problem for me. But if you want to do it, then we need to make a rule that says you have to do it. One of the things about connection is the public typically doesn't. They don't want it. When you're out trying to sell something, they do not. I mean, and if they want it, I promise you, as developers, we'd do it. I mean, I guarantee you, I'd look for everything to connect if that's what was selling and what people wanted. And I know cul-de-sacs are out of favor, except everybody that lives in a cul-de-sac. I mean, they like them, And I'm not saying that we don't need to have connectivity, because we certainly do. But I think if that's what the route we want to take, we ought to pass a rule that says you have to connect,
Yeah, let me just say, Mr. Payne, I appreciate that comment. That's why we're having these discussions relative to that. And I would agree with you. Everybody that lives on a cul-de-sac likes a cul-de-sac, but when you're providing a connective public roadway system, those may be more appropriate as private roads handled by an HOA. So to only say that I agree with you relative to requirements, but the reason why we're having this conversation, it's an important conversation to have about the way we continue to develop in an unincorporated county that's becoming much more suburban and urban. Thank you.
And if I mind, if this is going to be a discussion for down the road, and I think it's a discussion that staff needs to have and probably meet with the development community and come up with what that is. But trying to set that today, again, sets a dangerous precedent as I see it, without having proper context exactly when you should have those situations occur. So again, I would ask not to be required to connect into Crossgate Road.
Mr. Payne.
I think even if you're going to do this, I think, and maybe this is maybe the people in Shadow Ridge or whatever that road would love it, but they may not like. I mean, I think if you're going to require that should be something that was part of the original posting, because the people in Shadow Ridge, the people in this subdivision you're about to connect to, have no idea. If they look at this plat and saw it, they wouldn't know that we're approving connecting into their neighborhood without them knowing it. They may be very much for it, but we might have another room full of people opposing it if they were aware of it. So, I mean, I don't know how you would do that, but I do think we can't know what their thoughts are because it wasn't posted, or we have no idea what it was.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. And in regards to the first condition, Mr. Schultz, if a motion were made according to the applicant's request, does staff understand what that condition would be?
Yeah, I think it's keep the first language, type C, along the northern property line and then the southern property line and along Little Ringgold Road, frontage, except for ingress and egress, trees to be planted 25 feet on center. I think it's what, Mike can correct if I'm wrong. I think that's what
That's
he's
correct. Yes, sir.
saying.
Any other discussion? Mr. Byrd?
To Mr. Payne's point about what the residents, the future residents of this subdivision might want or not want to see, I'm not sure if that's our mandate here. I mean, the way I'm coming at this is trying to promote best planning practices in the county. And to Mr. Lehman's point, emergency access, school bus access, connectivity provides a host of benefits that might not accrue to the residents of this subdivision, but accrue to the residents of the county as a whole. Increased connectivity leads to benefits to everybody in the county who might drive through this area. And it might become a cut through, but I'm not sure preventing cut through neighborhoods is really what we're here for. I did find the section that Mr. Schultz referred to. The arrangements of streets and new subdivisions shall provide for the continuation of existing proposed or platted streets in adjoining areas where feasible as determined by the Planning Commission. I don't like this language a whole lot because it does put a lot of onus on us as a Planning Commission, that it puts us in murky territory. As you say, I do agree with you. It's going to be required. It should be required. And I think it should be required. And I know we're going to be looking into the Hamilton County subdivision regs soonish. But all that being said, I'm supportive of that condition.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Lehman, I feel like you want to say
Well, I
something.
just was going to say, I make a motion to approve with the revision relative to the buffer on item number 1 and include condition number 2.
So we have a motion. And it has been properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Is it just one, or do I need to take a roll call? Because I only heard one opposed. Is there any other opposed?
Mr. Chair, I think I just heard one as well.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just off on my agenda. I think we're on case 2024-0113, located at 1916 Central Avenue. And that's an application to rezone from M1 to UGC. And staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Do you want to speak to the conditions? Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda, item 9, is case 2024-0114. It's located at 8455 Old Cleveland Pike. Staff has recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. The application is for rezoning A1 to R3. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Mr. Schultz?
Sure. This is a request to rezone from A1 Agriculture District to R3 multifamily for proposed single unit attached residential. Number of acres of this site's 1.25. Number of units proposed is 12. That's a density of 9.6. Looking at the zoning map on the screen, you see M1 to the north, RT1 to the south, R5 to the east, and to the west is A1. There is no R3 in this general vicinity. There's been no zoning history on this property. However, to the south, across Old Lee Highway, that property was rezoned in 2018 and 2002 to RT1 for townhome developments. This is a vacant piece of property. It's about 1,485 feet to the west of Old Lee Highway. It's single unit to the east, single unit attached residential to the south, and vacant land to the west, and single unit residential to the west. Here's a view of the site. Another view of the site. This is south of the site, which is the townhome development. West of the site, single family detached. East of the site, single family detached dwellings. This property is in the White Oak Mountain Plan, which is adopted in 2019. The plan recommendation is mixed residential. Primary uses include single unit living, which is attached and detached, and up to 2 to 8 units per lot. You can note here on the primary use, it doesn't mention multifamilies, which is what this use would be. Here's a closer view of that place type recommendation, which is mixed residential. Now here's the site plan. And I believe the request applicant can speak to this. The reason they're going to R3, this is an HPR type development, or they look like townhomes, but they're not. They're all multifamily on one lot. The proposed R3 multifamily district would not be compatible with the Area 12 plan, which again, the primary uses did not list multifamily. It's not compatible with adjacent land uses. There is no other R3 zone property near this site. The R3 zone allows for high-rise apartment buildings with higher intensity use. So staff recommended to deny R3 and recommend RT1, which is more of a fee simple townhome traditional development that you would see, typically see in those type zones. So staff recommends to deny R3 but approve RT1.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Question from Mr. Lehman.
So just a clarification. So they can do an HPR. To do an HPR, they need an R3.
Correct.
To do a fee simple, they're maybe doing the exact same product, but
Yes.
they're doing lot line.
Yes.
Okay.
With a public road into it. Because each one of those lots, townhome lots, have to have road frontage.
Yeah, road frontage. So it would be a public road
Yes.
also, or a private road to
Yeah.
county centers. Thank you.
And I think maybe the applicant can speak better to this. I believe it is, the intention is to have like HPR type development.
I am curious, and I'm not trying to pick at a scab, but in the very last case, we wanted connectivity because of the fact that there was this argument to be made that these public pieces of infrastructure that are only serving a handful of residents are cost prohibitive for the county or the city. In this case, we have an applicant who's requesting a specific zone so that private elements can be made that wouldn't burden, the government to do that long-term maintenance. And we've got a staff recommendation to deny when we're talking about the exact same product being built in either scenario, one being public that burdens the government, the other one's private.
It's really the higher density as part of it. Then the plan doesn't support it either. One of our newer plans doesn't support the higher density. Okay, that's one of the main reasons. You're right. It will look and function and form almost identically the same, but if this doesn't get developed, you'd have R3 zone property sitting there unless you put conditions on it.
But a lot of times we are conditioning R3 developments when we know the intent of the developer is to build a lower density townhome development.
Right. So maybe the applicant can add more. Again,
Okay,
we haven't
that's
had
fine.
those discussions with him.
Yeah, I was just curious when I heard coming off the one case where we're talking about the need for public infrastructure
Right.
to serve some sort of greater good. And then in this case, we have the desire to build private infrastructure because it's only serving the specific residents. Is there any opposition in regards to this case? Mr. Adamson, do you want to speak?
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission and Regional Planning staff. My name is Charles Adamson, Planning Works located at 4737 Rosemary Lane, Woodwall, Tennessee, and I'm here today to formally request a zoning change for the property located at 8455 Oak Clifton Pike, Woodwall, Tennessee. Currently zoned as A1 to rezone as R3, 1.25 acres of the property, to build workforce housing in the area inclusive of townhome place types. Our purpose and vision, our proposal aims to address the growing need for workforce housing options within our community The R3 zoning designation will allow us to develop townhomes that cater to the workforce, providing housing solutions conveniently located near essential services and employment centers such as Little Debbie, Volkswagen, Gestamp, Amazon, police, fire, government workers, and teachers. Our alignment with the community, the surrounding neighborhood is characterized by similar developments, including townhomes and multifamily residences. Rezoning this property R3 aligns with existing place types in the area, ensuring a cohesive and harmonious expansion that supports the planning objectives. The benefits of the community will increase housing availability by introducing workforce housing. We can help alleviate the housing shortage and offer more options for individuals and families seeking suitable living arrangements. Economic growth, workforce housing close to employment hubs can attract and retain a stable workforce, contributing to the local economy. And with our community integration, our project is designed to integrate seamlessly with the existing neighborhood, enhancing the overall aesthetic and community feel. We are committed to maintaining high standards of design and construction to ensure that the new development complements the current neighborhood character. Additionally, we're prepared to address any concerns the Planning Commission or community members may have regarding this zoning request. Specific conditions for Lobby Railroad Flats. The staff report serves as a suggested tool and/or alternatives that are strictly for informational purposes and not intended to be used as a basis for approving or denying a zoning case or as part of the permitting process. The Area 12 plan, in which I actually participated in by traveling to other cities and counties to gain insight on effective housing solutions. During that time, we met with community members and stakeholders living in Area 12, and by having those discussions, I gained a wealth of knowledge on effective development practices that would benefit everyone. I truly felt and heard the heartbeat of the people. Recognize the evolving nature for growth and development of Area 12 plan. We request the following conditions for Lobby Railroad Flats to have no easement impediments. 1, acreage and unit limitations. Condition the project to 1.25 acres with a private drive with a maximum of 16 units. A vertical development, condition R3 to a maximum vertical development of 2.5 stories. Conclusion, our proposed rezoning with conditions 8455 Oak Cleveland Pike to R3 for workforce housing is thoroughly planned initially aimed at benefiting the community through increased housing availability, economic growth, and seamless integration with the existing neighborhood. We believe these conditions and adjustments will address potential changes and pave the way for a successful project. Bobby Joe Adamson, President, and Albert P. Woodard, Vice President of the Summit Community Association, have expressed their full support. Thank you for your time and consideration. And let you know, this is not a rental community. These homes will be for sale. Somewhere in the range of about 300,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Adamson. Any questions for the applicant? So can you highlight those conditions again that you had suggested?
Yes,
You had 16.
maximum of 16 units, 1.25 acres, and a maximum height of 2.5 stories.
Okay.
With the private drive.
Yeah, we don't need the acreage. We just perhaps just the number of units and the maximum height, story height. That's all we need. But if I heard the applicant correctly, these are going to be fee simple ownership, and that means a public road will still have to be built.
No, not necessarily.
Unless you do an HBR.
That's right. I would add that if we approve this rezoning with conditions, we're not approving this site plan. Just
Correct.
To note that, there may be issues with the site plan in regards to fire protection and some of those sorts of things that need to be worked through. So we're not approving the site plan, just zoning and zoning conditions. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just for the applicant, he made the statement about the community.
Yes, sir.
Backing it strongly.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So the entire community is on board with this.
Yes, sir.
Having heard from staff and the applicant, what's the will of the commission?
Motion for the approval of the request,
We need that subject to those conditions.
subject to those conditions.
Second. Thank you. And the conditions are a max of 16 units and 2.5 stories.
And just to be clear for the record, that is R3.
I'm sorry,
That is R3 instead of R2.
it is R3. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is item 10, case 2024-0115, and this is located at 1014 Inglewood Avenue. Staff is recommended to deny an applicant's request to rezone from R1 to RTZ zero lot line zone. Is there any opposition present?
And Mr. Chairman, we did receive several emails in opposition to that you have in front of you in your spreadsheet.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Thank you. Do you want to say anything before we get started on it? Okay. So what the applicant's requesting is a deferral for 60 days. Can you come up to the microphone? State your name and address for the record.
My name is Joseph Wise. I'm Chattanooga branch manager for TWO at 1208 Point Center Drive.
What's the reason for the request to defer for 60 days?
The owner would like some time to work on the conceptual plans and also dialogue with the neighborhood.
Does the developer know? Can you raise your hands if you're in here in opposition? Okay, so how's that going to happen in the next 60 days? Because these people have sat through an hour and 36 minutes of our meeting only to find out that you want to defer for 60 days. I would, and I think everybody else on Planning Commission would love for that conversation to happen, but frankly, it should have happened prior to today. They should not have sat here for an hour and 37 minutes only to find out that you're wanting to defer for 60 days to have a conversation with them, which I'm sure they would very much appreciate.
Understood. We spoke with Mr. Brooks, who I understand is the president of the Homeowners Association. We did let him know our intent to defer.
You did let them know that you had the intent to defer?
I did.
Okay. Well, so maybe that communication needs to be cleaned up a little bit. We do have a request for a deferral for 60 days. We have a room full of opposition. What's the will of the commission? Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wise, have you reached out to Councilwoman Hill?
We have not.
Prior to coming to this meeting, you have not reached out to the council representative?
We intended on deferring, and so we wanted additional time and so we didn't expect to move forward today.
So here's my problem.
Wow. Okay.
These people have sat here for an hour and 38 minutes. We have a very long agenda. We have a lot of work to do. And I would love nothing more than for this planning commission to defer this for 60 days. But it's a Bush League move to show up at planning commission and make these people sit through that hour and 37 minutes only to find out that you're requesting a deferral. Because what planning commission probably will do is defer the case for 60 days. This should not happen again.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to add complexity to this.
Sure.
If it's deferred for 60 days, that means it'll be back in September to this body. New zoning code become online in October. When this gets to the body, RTZ won't exist at that point.
That's right.
So that's going to add some complexity to it. I'd withdraw.
Okay. Yeah, and just, may I provide some clarity? I was told that Mr. Bill Brooks was the president of the Homeowners Association, and we dialogued, and unofficially, I was told.
Well, just make sure your comments are addressed to us.
Okay. I was told he was the one that represented the neighborhood, and we spoke with him and let him know that we intended to defer and that we would like to talk with the neighborhood more at length and develop our plans so that we could address their concerns. And we reached out to the RPA to let them know that we'd like to defer about a week ago. And the RPA asked, they told me that we couldn't do that.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. I think that's helpful.
add that the reason that we couldn't accept the deferral was we'd already advertised the application in the paper on our website and we had the sign posted. If he had asked prior to the 2-week deadline, we wouldn't have advertised it and we could have withdrawn it then, just for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Wise, is it your intent that you wish to change to motion to withdraw? I make that motion to withdraw.
We have a
And
motion to
while we
withdraw.
have that out and on the floor for discussion, I really, really strongly suggest you reach out to Councilwoman Hill and these fine folks who have showed up here and spent at least a couple of hours of their afternoon. Thank you very much. Motion stands, Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion to defer. And did I hear a second for that? Or I'm sorry, to withdraw. It was seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on our agenda, item 11. We'll wait for y'all to leave. All right, next item on our agenda is item 11. It's a mandatory referral, case 2024-0117, and it's located at the 1200 block of Grove Street and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12 on our agenda, case 2024-0118, is located at 2400 Chamberlain Avenue. It's an application to rezone from R2 to UGC. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And do you take issue with any of the conditions?
Mr. Chair, I'll go to the conditions. 3 conditions proposed to staff is residential uses only, maximum building height of 3 stories and 40 feet, and condition number 3, a maximum of 4 residential units. And we did receive 1 email in opposition to this request.
Good afternoon, Alan Jones of Stone Creek Consulting, 1112 Wilmouth Road, Dunlap, Tennessee. The request is to remove condition number 3. I have reached out to both Councilwoman Coonrod and to the Ridgedale Neighborhood Association. They like the plan that we have proposed. And also, if you look at all the other UGCs that have been approved in this area, there's probably about 4 or 5. Especially the ones on the corners, no conditions have been put as far as the maximum number of units being allowed on the site. We showed 7 because that is a potential. So we'd like to show the neighborhood, this is the potential for the development. But once we get into construction drawings and really look at the market of what this neighborhood is wanting, that number could go down, So we're asking to have that restricted so we can work with the neighborhood and figure out what the best combination of units is for this site. But to reiterate, both Coonrod and the Neighborhood Association of Ridgedale, we're good with the plan that we're proposing currently.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? What's will of the commission? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. That was with conditions 1 and 2 only. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next case, item 13, is case 2024-0119. Staff is recommended to deny this applicant's request for rezoning from R1 to UGC. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? You're here in opposition? Okay. Is the applicant present? You are the applicant to this? Okay. Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, this is case 2024-119. This is a request to rezone the currently R1 zone piece of property to UGC for single unit attached residential townhomes. It's roughly 0.122 acres in size. Applicant's proposing 4 units. That's a density of 32.8. Looking at the zoning map, to the north is R4, to the south is R1, to the west is R1 and M1, and to the east of this site is RTZ. The RTZ has conditions on it to be single family detached only. Here's your zoning history of that property. There is no history on this applicant's piece of property, but again, to the east, that was rezoned in 2018 from R1 to RTZ with condition that it be single family to keep that same pattern along this corridor. There is UGC to the south, about 1 block to the south. That was rezoned in 2021 with conditions. Here's a view of the site. To the east is single unit residential. To the west is single unit residential. To the south is single unit residential. And to the north is commercial. You can see in this location, there are no attached units. It's primarily single unit detached. Here's a view of the site, which is single family dwelling. Another view of the site. This is a view north of the site, which I think is being commercially used now. South of the site, which is single family. This is east of the site, which is zoned to RTZ. Again, that's conditioned to single unit detached. This is west of the site, which is single family detached. This is looking along East 12th. You can see this, the White House. That's the site itself. This is in the historic River Ridge plan, which is adopted in 2020. The place type recommendation is single family. It's the urban residential with a single family place type overlay, meaning the neighborhood felt protection of single family uses. It was very important in this area. So there's an overlay on top of that. Here's a closer view of that. That's what that cross hatching indicates. This should be used as single family detached only. Here's the site plan submitted with the request. So the request is not compatible with the Area 3 plan, not compatible with adjacent land uses, and the land uses is single family detached. Again, this is in the overlay, which recommends single family detached uses only. The current zoning would allow a single family detached dwelling and an ADU. We feel that's the most appropriate use of this property. So therefore, staff recommended to deny this request.
Can the applicant come up? Any questions for staff? State your name and address for the record.
Benjamin Peterson, 1918 Green, South Greenwood.
You've heard staff's recommendation in regards to this. Anything to add?
Well, I was in the mind that they would want more affordable housing, so that's why I tried to, that's why I was saying,
Well, I think there definitely is a desire to have more affordable housing, and I applaud the effort. Mr. Anderson, do you have anything to say in regards to that? I'm sure you might.
You read my mind. Thank you, Chairman. We do want more affordable housing. And if you've got a minute after this meeting, I'll stick around and talk to you about how I can hook you up with our Chief Housing Officer, Nicole Heyman, about the programs that are available to help create that affordable housing. I will say we have no way of knowing if this is going to be affordable housing. This is just a rezone. So there's no, you could charge $1 million a piece and sell these units. So we have no way of knowing
well,
that.
the city already got conditions on it. The city gave them the property, so they already got conditions on it to make it affordable.
You received this property from the city?
Yes.
When?
2 years ago.
Through the Land Bank Authority.
Yes.
Okay. That's news to me, Chairman.
So I have to do affordable housing, so I ain't gonna just come up here and say it just for the heck of it.
Do you have a copy of the agreement that you've already signed about affordable?
It should be on the deed.
Chairman, I want to defer this a month. I'd like to make a motion to defer 30 days so we can study this more.
Second. We have a motion to defer for 30 days. It has been properly seconded. Is 30 days going to be enough?
It will be.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0120. It's located at 1547 Mercer Street in an unaddressed property in the 1500 block of Mercer Street. It's an application to rezone from M1 to R1. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? You're here in opposition? Or questions? You would like to speak in regards to this case? Okay, fantastic.
Mr. Chairman, there's actually 3 cases associated with this one property. One's a rezoning, then a PUD, and then a mandatory referral.
Gotcha.
Don Shepard,
Thank
AD
you.
Engineering. If I might address all 3 cases together, because I think they will make more sense if I do that. The first case is to rezone from M1 manufacturing zone to an R1. The second case is a PUD, so it would be an R1 PUD. And then the third case is a very unusual case. And the only other one that I know of that we've done was the one that we did for Riverton, where we did a property acquisition for a future right of way. And so this would be a leg off of that road that is proposed for the Riverton development.
Donna, if you could, I just want to cover a couple quick things.
Correct.
Is there any opposition to any one of these 3 cases, item 14, 15, or 16 on our agenda? Okay, you're here in opposition as well, ma'am. Okay, thank you. If we could, Donna, before you get started, Mr. Schultz, can you take us through all 3 cases quickly?
Yeah, the first case is a rezoning request. This is the rezone from M1 to R1. To the northwest is a single unit residential. To the east is DuPont Parkway, and to the south is vacant land that will be developed as single unit detached. There is some flood plain associated with this property. Here's a view of the site from Elm Street. This is a view of Arkwright Street to the property. North of the site, which is Lufton City, single family detached dwellings. Southwest of the site, west of the site. It's in the Hickson North River Plan, which was adopted in 2005. It recommends low density residential. I'll skip that. Staff looked at this in terms of the zoning case. It is compatible with the Hickson North River Plan. Single unit residential would be compatible with adjacent land uses. The applicant did submit one condition with a rezoning request, so staff agrees with that condition. So staff recommended to approve with one condition on the zoning. Developer agrees to construct a 10-foot wide public greenway at a mutually agreed upon location by developer and city staff. So that's the rezoning. The PUD is the exact same property. Here's the PUD plan or site plan that's submitted with a request. It's roughly 100 units of single family detached and 87 units of townhome units. The blue color on the screen are the townhome units, and then the orange color is the single family detached. It has entrance coming off Arkwright to the north, and then a road to the south, which is tied to the mandatory referral case that's next. Staff looked at this request in terms of the PUD. Again, it would be compatible with adjacent land uses. Because this does abut, if you look this blue along Arkwright, I think you can see it here. You probably can't see it on the screen, but there's Arkwright to the left of the screen to the southwest. That's abutting single family detached dwellings to the north. These blue is proposed townhomes, so staff recommended 2 conditions to provide compatibility and buffering. So those 2 conditions on the PUD are no individual driveway curb cuts are permitted along Arkwright Street. And condition number 2, a 10-foot type C landscape buffer is required for the property abutting Arkwright Street. Again, that's trying to provide compatibility between those single family detached units and the townhomes. And then here's 2 MRs. This is a very unusual request. It's asking to put on public property future right-of-way. It's very unusual that we accepted these two requests and moved forward with it. The city attorney said this is the most appropriate way to do it. So we're moving forward with these two requests, and that is to approve the mandatory referral for what will eventually be two streets dedicated back to the city of Chattanooga. I'll answer any questions that may come up.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd.
I'd like to stay on the mandatory referral slide, if I will. That one, that will be good. Arkwright Street.
I don't know that you have any opposition to that. And you have a staff recommendation to approve the mandatory referral. Do you have any, is there any opposition to that specific?
I have comments on it too.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's why I want to explain it.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
And it also relates to the conditions about the type C landscape buffer and the no curb cuts on Arkwright. So currently, this property used to be owned by the mill, Dixie Mill. The city has acquired that property and has been working with the residents for a long time. The original mandatory referral is the north-south road that goes from Dixie Circle, crosses the railroad tracks, and goes into the Riverton project, which is currently under construction. This mandatory referral will tie into that road. And so the green dashed line there is the greenway that will make a connection to Luptonville Crossing. That goes down through the Riverton project. But if you look at the zoning plan, we don't want to switch, but it will go through the development and then come out towards Birmingham and Elm, which is something that Councilwoman Hill very much wants, and so does Parks and Recreation. That will be a 60-foot right-of-way. The reason why the right-of-way is more than 50 feet is to give us additional space to provide that greenway connection. Arkwright Street was originally platted as a 40-foot wide right-of-way. Dixie Circle comes around, and then Arkwright connects to it on the north side and loops around. And then once it gets to the part that we will be improving, it's a one-way street. It kind of dead ends into a dirt path with a tree. And currently the residents turn around there and they go back the other direction. So the purpose of the mandatory referral is, one, to reverse an abandonment that was previously made by the mill site when they owned all this property. And so what we want to do is to restore a minimum 40-foot wide right-of-way and give those residents access to the north-south Luptonville Crossing road that was approved on the previous mandatory referral. They don't have parking. So in lieu of the no rear loading on the townhomes, what we'd like to propose is do streetscape trees on the north side of Arkwright Street to provide some buffering. These houses are very, very close. There's 5 houses that front Arkwright. They're very, very close to the road. They currently have a 4-foot wide sidewalk. So what we'd like to do is provide a 4-foot verge and then provide 8 foot of on-street parking for them. That road would continue through. Once we get past those houses, we'll probably jump up to class 1 trees. And then we have a road on the, if you'll go to the development plan, please. Okay, so we have an alley. You see the blue? Those are townhomes, and we have an alley that will connect to that. So they would have 2 different directions that they could go. So there's an alley down to our new 60-foot road, and then that alley, Arkwright, it's a road, but it functions like an alley. Will go out to Luptonville Crossing. We would like to rear load those townhomes. Most of the development is rear loaded, except for some of the single family detached that is adjacent. The other thing we would like to propose to them for the transition, because I think that is one of the reasons why they proposed no access from the rear, is we would limit those townhomes to 2-story. So that would give you a good transition from the single family homes, the 5 single family homes that's on Arkwright, to the townhomes. The proposed density for the full development is 4 dwelling units per acre, which is very much in line with R1. I'll let you ask questions.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
We've had a lot of conversations about this, and I've met with the developers on it a couple of times too. In the comments here, you've got the specific of the conditions rather. Developer agrees to construct a 10-foot wide public greenway at a mutually agreed upon location by developer and the city staff. But you have it here on the site, and I know that we are still having a lot of internal discussions about how the Riverwalk connector gets from Rivermont Park to the across Champions Club or around it, and then to the other side, so we can connect and come across the river to connect into the county's river park. And Scott Martin and I actually walked the site last week. If you hear that any city people were on site looking around, everybody saw us. I want to make sure that by approving this site plan today, we're not committing to this specific location, because we're not in a position to do that yet.
That's okay. One comment I would like to make on that is the Riverton South project versus the Riverton North project are 2 separate projects.
I understand.
This is generally where we would like to put it. One of the reasons why we chose this location is there is a large sewer interceptor line that runs through this north property. And so we tried to follow that because you can't really build on that anyways. And so what made sense was to connect near where the future city park would be and where we do know that the Riverton Greenway would be, and then follow through and make that connection up at Elm. But if you want to have further discussion, I think that would be okay.
Thank you. And I do understand this is a different ownership group for this parcel a little to the north. I get that. We don't know where the path's going to come out of the other one. And I also know that you're the engineer on that one too. That's why I was
sure.
So I don't think we'd be adversarial in any way about the location. I just want to make sure that we get it exactly right. And I don't want to pigeonhole us into a site plan if it has to move over a foot,
Sure.
Chairman, I'll make a motion when everybody's had their comments.
Did you want to comment on any of the other cases in regards to the conditions or anything like that?
I didn't know if anybody had any questions about our proposed amendment to the other with regards to the driveway cuts and the type C landscape buffer. I think it best serves the adjacent neighborhood to propose 3 conditions. One is that the townhomes along Arkwright Street be a maximum of 2 stories high, that we provide a streetscape along the north side of Arkwright Street. We're not proposing any new sidewalk, but just street trees. And then we also would propose to do some on-street parking on the north side to accommodate the residents on Arkwright Street.
Thank you. All right. There were some folks here that had some questions or wanted to speak in regards to the case. Please come on up to the microphone if you'd like to speak. Ma'am, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dee Neely, and I live at 1475 Elm Street. That's at the corner of Birmingham and Elm, 2 of the streets that have been mentioned here. First, I would, and I've lived there for 57 years, so I've seen changes. I'm not at all in opposition to what is planned. What I am in opposition about, and I haven't read in the application or I haven't heard anyone speak, since I live at the corner of Elm Street and Birmingham. Uh, those streets are very short streets. There's mixed individuals there with seniors and new families moving in. The concern that I have with the 187 properties that will be developed is the exit onto Elm Street, the corner of Birmingham and Elm. Many of your maps show that Elm Street continues, is a street that crosses a ditch and goes down basically to the DuPont Parkway. That is not the case. The corner of Birmingham and Elm is where Elm Street stops. Then you go a distance and Elm Street picks up again. So I want to make it clear that that's not a continuous road there. Many individuals in our neighborhood, like I say, are seniors or young families. They walk with strollers and their dogs and all of that. And unfortunately, Elm Street nor Birmingham has sidewalks. I would like to see a traffic impact study, because with potentially 187 plus vehicles using the corner of Birmingham and Elm, and we have individuals that are walking on those roads, I'd like to see a traffic impact study. I don't know if that's been done. I applaud Riverton for keeping our neighborhood association and our president, Mark, informed about everything that's happening. And I can tell from the other person's discussion, a lot has gone into the study of Luptonville Drive, Arkwright, but I don't know that studies have been done to address the traffic on Elm and Birmingham. I understand that there's a traffic light that will possibly be installed at the intersection of Birmingham Drive and Access Road. And that is much needed. We've been talking about that even before Riverton was even thought of, that it's very difficult to get out onto Access Road. It's a dangerous situation the way it is now. And I can't imagine if we don't do something there, what the traffic would be like. So I'm concerned because we don't have sidewalks on Elm or Birmingham. I'm concerned because the street does not go all the way through, that people that want to use that greenway and the sidewalks and such that are going into this new north development, I'm concerned about parking on that street. Will people be parking there? And there's just, that's my concern, not the development, but the fact that I can't see where anything has been done to look at the traffic impact on the corner of Elm Street and Birmingham. And I'd like to see that done. And I'd like to see this tabled or deferred or whatever the term is for 30 days to have that traffic impact study completed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Mark Mullins. I live at 1207 Claremont Drive. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association for this. And I just want to request a condition. That's about where you have your red dot. That is a Birmingham Drive above it. And I don't know what the name will be when it pulls straight. It's straight through. It's about the flattest street we have in our neighborhood. It's like a drag strip. And I would like to request that we have what do they call those things? Traffic calming, where when you come in off of Birmingham, you force them to make a turn to slow them down or something like that, and very nicely landscaped. But we are not in opposition to this. I've talked to many neighbors, except my arc-right neighbors, and we're okay with most everything. We just want to request that condition.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shepherd.
I think her biggest comment was on traffic in the traffic impact study. As I mentioned, Riverton is a separate project. This body originally approved, I think, 300 plus units for that. Then you recently reapproved a preliminary plat for that development to be reduced down to 37 lots. They went to state lots. So a lot of the density that was originally planned for that area has gone down. Going back to the mandatory referral, that north-south road that goes into Riverton, it goes across the north side of the Riverton project, and then it comes back out just before you get to the railroad tracks on Lupton Drive, which Lupton Drive takes you out to the traffic signal on Hickson Pike. So I wanted to say that there are multiple ways out of this development. My first house was actually on Fairfax, and there are many, many different routes through Fairfax Heights and Lupton City and Bagwell City to get out to Hickson Pike and to Access Road. We will do what transportation requests us to do. I think we've already reached out to our transportation engineer to update the traffic impact study that was done for the original Riverton project. That study came out to say that there were no improvements to be made on the existing infrastructure. That's all.
Thank you, Donna. Any questions for the applicant? All right. In regards to item 14 on our agenda, it's case 2024-0120. It's located in the 1500 block of Mercer Street. It's an application to rezone from M1 to R1, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. What's the will of the commission? Mr. Anderson.
I really just have one question for Donna. I'm sorry, I know you called for questions
sure.
for the applicant. I'm hopefully will want to make a motion based on your answer. So is there some type of traffic calming you could do where Mark has requested it?
Can I jump in? She might agree, but I mean, we just earlier ruled on a case where we're creating connectivity that will result in traffic moving differently through existing neighborhoods.
Right.
Those residents weren't given the opportunity to come and speak and raise concerns that Mr. Payne raised on their behalf in regards to traffic calming measures. And as an applicant, sometimes as an applicant, I don't know that those future needed traffic calming measures fall on the developer as much as they do the city. So I just wanted to voice that concern before Donna agreed to anything.
Reasonable concern, and I'm not looking for we will install a speed table of this width or whatever. Just we work with us on a traffic calming there.
Yes, and we'll consult with our traffic consultant on what the best, what he recommends to be, and CDOT, what they recommend to be the best traffic calming device along Birmingham.
Okay. Thank you for that, Donna. And I'd like to move to approve with conditions. And I'd like to restate the condition that I read earlier. Developer agrees to construct a 10-foot wide public greenway at a mutually agreed upon location by developer and city staff. And we are not bound by the site plan location.
We have a motion and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Case 2024-0121, located at 1547 Mercer Street, an unaddressed property in the 1500 block of Mercer Street. Yeah, we have a special permit for residential plan unit development. Staff recommendation to approve with conditions. What's the will of the commission?
Move to approve with conditions.
We have a motion to approve with conditions.
We had proposed other conditions other than what was up there, remember?
Yeah,
Can you restate them?
I wrote maximum 2 stories and a 10-foot type C landscape buffer is required
sir.
for the
No.
property. Go ahead.
Well, the conditions that we were proposing in lieu of this were maximum 2 stories for the townhomes, that we would provide streetscape trees on the north side of Arkwright Street. We're not proposing any type C landscape buffer. And then the third condition would be that we would provide on-street parking, parallel on-street parking on the north side of Arkwright Street to serve the existing residents.
Just to be clear, did you want that 2-story townhouse maximum only applied to Arkwright or throughout the development?
Only on Arkwright.
Staff is concerned with condition number 3, but on-street parking, I'm not sure that more or less be a transportation call. We can do that as a condition. I'm just not aware. Maybe Chris.
I don't think I've seen it as one before.
I don't know. If you put a condition on it and CDOT doesn't allow it, then it means it come
Donna,
back.
why
through.
are you adding these conditions if you've got a staff recommendation to approve with the existing conditions? Are you adding additional conditions?
Yeah, you're about to get.
I don't like these 2 conditions.
So you're wanting to substitute?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the reason staff had those conditions was trying to protect, as the applicant mentioned, on the Arkwright, those homes on Arkwright are going to be looking at the back of townhomes. And that's where staff came up with those 2 conditions to alleviate their views.
And that is why I'm proposing conditions that are beneficial to the residents of Arkwright. These houses are very close to the street on Arkwright. They do not have parking. Right now, they park in the middle of it and they turn around. So we're providing them new connectivity and a new road. We're providing some on-street parking for them. And I don't want to dismiss the landscaping, so we'll provide streetscape trees on their side of the street.
Gotcha.
I want my curb cuts, and I don't want to have to provide the type C landscape buffer.
Mr. Reuter.
You know, I don't want to have said something unkind to Mike earlier, but really, it would be helpful. I agree with Mike. We should be able to get these kinds of things the Friday before at noon, and then we can submit them to the Planning Commission in the afternoon prior to Planning Commission.
To be fair, we get the staff recommendations pretty late in the game.
Well, let's not go down that road.
Okay.
You mean of talking for another hour about this application? I think that's a great idea.
It has been mentioned, yes. Right. Thank you, sir.
By completing Arkwright, we also.
Name and address for the record.
Oh, sorry, Tiffany Farley, 5681 Beaver Hill Road, Pikeville, Tennessee. By completing the construction of Arkwright, we will provide better conditions for city services, including trash, fire, and ambulance service. Right now, they have to turn around a tree in the middle of Arkwright, which isn't even on their property. So we're actually improving the condition for those residents. There's only 4 houses that face Arkwright. Everything else faces Dixie Circle.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the will of the commission? I suggest that we approve with conditions, and the applicant has to lift conditions or revise conditions based on certain discussions with CDOT in regards to this on-street parking issue.
May I?
Sure.
We've actually met with CDOT and gave them this plan, and we told them that I had to work with them on the mandatory referral. I had to have a sponsor to even to submit this application for the mandatory referral because the applicant is actually the city of Chattanooga. Tiffany and I met with Chris Davis at CDOT, and this is exactly what we showed them. They are very excited about us completing Arkwright and providing connectivity for these residents on Arkwright.
I think that's in relation to the MR. The MR. It's not the PUD or the condition of the PUD.
But we're showing rear loaded for the townhomes. And we told them that we would rear load these townhomes.
Donna, just be honest, the issue that we face as planning commission is we've got your plan, which is different from staff's recommendation. And, you know, we've got concerns from the neighbors in regards to Arkwright. It's obviously an issue. Sir, I'm speaking on your behalf. Is it possible to, and obviously, based on Dan's comments, he would love to have the opportunity to have vetted this before it came to planning commission. Is it possible for you to defer this?
So this actually goes to city council.
Sure.
I would be willing to move this forward through planning commission and work on it between now and city council.
I'd entertain a motion to approve. with
Chairman, I
conditions.
move we approve with the staff conditions, and we encourage Donna to reach out to Councilwoman Hill, and we'll have those discussions.
We will.
Second.
We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 16 on our agenda, mandatory referral 2024-126, located at 1210 Mercer Street. As a staff recommendation to approve. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Tiffany. Item 17, we've already covered. Item 18 on our agenda is case 2024-123, and this is located, I'm not listing all those addresses, but on East Brainerd Road, and it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission?
Move to
We
approve.
have a motion to approve. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on our agenda, item 19, is case 2024-0124. And this is for a PUD amendment to the same addresses that we just covered and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item 20. It's case 2024-0125, and it's located at 2099 East Main Street. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions an application for rezoning from R4 to R1, R4 and R1 to UGC. Is there any opposition?
Mr. Chairman, we did receive an email, not necessarily in opposition, but it's a long email. They wish for it to be read in the record. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Basically, at the end of the day, he just wants the applicant to know the site plan submitted doesn't appear to meet some components of UGC. Just to be aware of that.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Is the applicant present? Okay, you have some conditions. Are you? Okay. You're fine with the conditions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0127, and it's located in the 1900 block of Henniger Circle. And it's amend conditions, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Mr. Schultz? And I believe we've got.
There's actually 3 cases
yeah.
associated with this.
So we'll cover all 3 at once.
Yeah, this is a very complicated case. There are some conditions that are on this property that were placed on the property when the rezoning occurred. We go back to those. Has split, well, not split. There's 2 different cases on this property. And I don't know how this happened back in 2018, but the property in question before you today had 6 conditions: limited construction to 3 stories, no parking garage, and the one that's most important is condition number 3, medical and office use only. Condition number 4, type C buffer added opposite the type A buffer to the north side. Number 5 is a 28-foot street yard buffer with an irrigated 6-foot high berm on the east side of Joyner Road. That's an important condition as well. And number 6, add sidewalks along Joyner Road based on CDOT recommendations. Based on those conditions, this should have been developed as medical office use only. That's not what happened. It got developed as townhomes. Doesn't meet the conditions. To the north of this property is single unit residential. To the south is office uses. To the west is office, medical, and commercial uses along Gun Barrel Road. And to the east is single family, detached, and vacant uses. Here's a view of the site where the townhomes are constructed. Another view of those. This is west of the site. South of the site, again, townhomes. This is Joyner Road. This to the east. This is the townhomes on the west-hand side. Won't get in the land use plan. Doesn't really help on the conditions here. This is the site plan for the townhome development. The request to lift and amend conditions is compatible with Area 11 plan. It would be compatible with adjacent uses. So staff recommends to approve. There is no change to condition number 1 or 2. Number 3 is just rewording a little bit where it got wonky on the way it was worded, but type C buffer on the north side of the property shall be provided. Condition 4 and 5 are a little different. Condition number 4 says a 15-foot wide to 25-foot wide area shall be graded to create earthen berms and graded areas for planting as shown on Exhibit A is prepared by map engineers. It goes on and on about landscape buffer. Condition number 5, the sidewalk shall be constructed on the east side of Joyner Road from the intersection of Joyner Road and Ziegler Road, north approximately 525 feet, the equivalent of the sidewalk that would have been constructed along the western side of Joyner Road. So with this, staff recommends to approve the lifting of amending of conditions on case 127. 128 is MR to abandon the right-of-way. Staff recommends to approve this. This is on the side where the townhomes are to be developed. To bring the construction of 89 townhomes into compliance after errors were discovered during the permitting process. So staff recommends to approve that mandatory referral. And finally, the last case is this property also abuts R1 to the north. There's a 4-foot strip of property that the current property owner, townhomes owner owns. That's zoned R1. That needs to be zoned R4. The applicant's requesting that be zoned R4. Staff recommend to approve the rezoning from R1 to R4 with no conditions. That's a nutshell, all 3 cases.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mike Price, MAP engineer. So what occurred here is a not so funny comedy of errors where it was permitted incorrectly through the LDO. The engineering firm and architectural firm also made errors as it relates to how this was designed. So what ended up then occurring is the applicant and then 2 of those that were originally in opposition, all 3 ended up coming together. We are actually working for all 3 to come to a solution. And the solution is that we will amend the condition to then bring the site into compliance, for 1. Number 2, ask for 10 foot of right of way to be abandoned along Joyner Road in order to be able to construct the landscape buffer that was supposed to have been constructed in the first place. And then thirdly, because they did not meet the setbacks on the north property line, we were able to negotiate and purchase 4 feet of land along the north portion of the property that now brings that portion of the site into compliance. So That's a short of a very long story. So all of this is to bring the entire site into compliance, or as close as we can get to it at this point, as it relates to the way it was originally zoned and the way that it was originally designed by another engineering firm. If there's any questions, happy to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Any questions? Yeah. We'll give room for opposition.
Thank you. Stephen Doherty. I live at 1718 Joyner Road, so I live across the street from this property. This property was just, and at least the buildings along Joyner Road were just under construction right after I moved in. So part of my purchase of that property was on some of these contingencies regarding that back set of buildings would have a 6-foot high berm, and there would be medical offices along that backside. It was pretty evident pretty quick on that they were going to build more townhomes there when the foundation started going in. So none of my neighbors are here, but they all basically said the same thing. It's supposed to be medical offices. We're not sure. So I tried to do some homework before this. The zoning says it's medical offices with a 6-foot berm. So basically somebody built something and then is asking for forgiveness after the fact. So obviously it's too late. Can't move the buildings. What I'm worried about is, again, it's not a highly traveled road, but if you narrow the road anymore, it's impassable. So the other end of Joyner Road is already very narrow. And the road just received a lot of damage during this construction with the dump trucks moving back and forth. So part of those contingencies, again, when I bought this property, was they're going to be building a fence along the back or this berm. They're going to repave the road, and then the property sells, which basically means everything that was promised doesn't happen. So I don't really know exactly what a type C buffer is, but if it's what's there, that's not acceptable. That's terrible. There's water standing there. I mean, we pay right now for mosquito treatments. We have been, right? Because we know we have a pool in the backyard. We get it, right? But when there's standing water across the street, it's a waste of money. When all that grass right now is dead and all of us on the other side of the street are paying to irrigate, I mean, what? We're talking about $500,000 homes down this one side of the street, and now we have this on the opposite side of the street with no buffer. It's a big concern for all of us, even though I'm the only one here. So, there was some, if you look at in the communication, it says, oh, we've been in communication with the neighbors. I've heard from no one other than these yellow signs. So I don't know how it happened. Again, that's between the developers and the city of Chattanooga. But moving forward, I don't know how to tell you to fix it, but to take an additional chunk out of the road where the blue lines are now, it's basically going to make the road worse than the other end. And the other end is barely passable for 2 vehicles. Adding a sidewalk when I already have a sidewalk in front of my house, I don't know. I don't know where the gain is. I'd like to see a sidewalk all the way, but I use this area for exercise. I run all the way around the backside, so there's no sidewalks back there. So I don't know how to fix it, but it seems like something went wrong when all of all those stipulations were put in there, and then none of them have been followed. So
Thank you. Mr. Price.
So the gentleman is correct that it was built without the conditions being followed. What we are trying to do is now come back after the fact and do the best job that we can to fix it and to create landscaping where it doesn't exist. So, Brian, if you pull up on looking down the street, yeah, go right there. That doesn't come anywhere close to providing a buffer. What we will be doing is regrading that entire area, getting rid of the areas that currently hold water, put landscaping in through there. If you know one of your neighbors, Ross Timashuk, who lives there, his brother is actually under contract to regrade that, replant that, to create a fence in through there, to create a totally different look as you go through there. The 10-foot of right of way, the reason that is being requested, doesn't touch the road. what that does is to give room to be able to create the buffer to landscape it, but leaves the road in its current condition. Now, granted, it's a little bit of, it's in bad shape, but we're not taking any of the road out. This is simply taking out the right of way. So it's trying to make the best of a bad situation. And in going through this and having multiple discussions with LDO, with the client, with all parties involved, and if all three parties, they're the main ones that have been impacted by this, and of course, they would be the ones like Ross Timashuk, who lives on the other side of Joyner Road. Everyone has come together to work on a plan, and I think this is the best solution, and it certainly is much better than leaving it in its current condition and state. So again, with that, I would ask that that this be, all three conditions be approved, because it takes all three to solve the overall problem.
Thanks, Mr. Price.
Mr. Chairman, that's what condition number, what basically Mr. Price is saying about Joyner. That's what condition number 4 is basically saying, that they'll improve landscaping along Joyner Road best they can.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we've been working on this for several months, probably half the year, I think.
It feels like it.
It feels like several years, but Joyner Road is, I've waited for a couple of seasons to put Joyner Road paving on our list, and we do have that on the city's list. So we should be seeing that come through, even though that road dead ends into the side of Coles. We do have that road on our paving list for, I want to say 2026, it could be 2027, depending on the PCI index that comes back on that. But that is a road that I've been watching for a while. Part of the reason we haven't done that road yet is because there's also development on the other end of that road about to start. You're seeing the signs built well by, I think it's RPH. So we're kind of waiting on that, because part of that road to be resurfaced is a responsibility. I put that condition in when we rezoned the former East Barron Elementary site. So just to let you know that I hear you loud and clear. We do have to mitigate this situation legally. And I think that I feel pretty confident that Ross is involved. And it sounds like you know him, and I'm seeing some head shaking. Yeah. And, you know, the fact that he's got his hands on this, and I think his brother is working on this, I feel it's going to be much better. That was part of the solution. So, and I appreciate y'all coming down and voicing your concern. You sat here for what, 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. But I want to let you know that we were aware, and we are working on those and working towards solutions on that. So thank you so much.
In regards to case 2024-0127, what's the will of the commission?
I move to approve with conditions.
We have a motion to
I do have
approve.
one quick question though, Chairman.
Good.
We did have some conversation about sidewalk. Mike, is there any development on that
So
during the course of this conversation?
So since it was discussed that, I believe, as I heard correctly, you didn't really care if a sidewalk was.
So, yeah.
And we.
Yep. Yeah. Normally, no one ever turns down the sidewalk. That's actually, if you saw my inbox for sidewalks, you'd say, "Wow." But Mike, we did have this as a point of conversation.
We did, and based upon discussions today, we would ask that number 5 be stricken, and we would just approve the 4 conditions.
And given what I'm hearing from our local resident, I would like to move to approve with conditions 1 through 4 only. If something develops between now and council, we will address it.
Second. We have a motion to approve conditions 1 through 4. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. In regards to a mandatory referral, case 2024-0128, we have a staff recommendation to approve. What's the will of the commission?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 23 on our agenda, case 2024-0129. We have staff recommendation to approve. What's the will of the commission?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 5 on our agenda is text amendments and resolutions. Mr. Schultz.
The first resolution is a resolution to adopt the Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, the new zoning regulations. I have the presentation that you all heard at your planning commission special called meeting. Do you wish me to go through that again, or how do you want to handle the adoption of the new red line version?
I think Mr. Reuter was wanting you to take us back through that.
Okay.
Is that what you're about to say?
No.
Okay, I got you.
We absolutely can go through it. I do think you need to have an opportunity for public comments today.
Sure.
And then, after that, we can probably, address any comments the planning commission has.
Okay. Is there any public comment on a resolution to adopt Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, new zoning regulations? Yes, Mr. Turson. Did you want to make public comment on these? Are these comments that we have heard before or, okay, thank you. Come on up. Donna, do you plan to make comments? Mr. Price, do you plan to make comments? Does anybody else plan to? All right, it's all yours.
Short and sweet. Justin Turson, 1500 Chestnut Street. I'm the vice president at Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise. I'm passing out to y'all now. Based on the equivalency zoning out there, the current affordable housing that we are building, we have 3 projects that are being funded partially through the RPA process that we're very excited about, but most of it could not be built under the new zoning code. And I have highlighted for you some of those issues, and on the last page just identified a few minor changes that could be made today even to get that cleared up. And that's all I wanted to provide for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Mr. Turson, do you have currently projects planned that would be impacted by this new ordinance and would then require some sort of variance or zoning change based on what you're reading? I mean, do we have shovel-ready projects or, intended projects that are being negatively impacted?
We have one project of 16 units that is currently at a point where we are postponing because of design to see what's going to happen. Because it will have to be designed differently depending on if we're doing the current UGC or some future zone, which means we also have to wait for equivalency to find out what zone we're going to as UGC and then figuring out which variances we have to approve for.
Can you take just a minute and explain this document that you've shared with us?
Yes, so at the very top are the current requirements of the project on Bailey that we are under construction on. Right below it is UGC, which shows you the requirements in UGC. We did have to get one minor variance because we provided on-street parking that wasn't originally there, which forced our building back farther than the 15-foot maximum setback. So we had to go to 17.5 feet. We had to get a variance for that. But otherwise, that was the only variance we needed. If you were to look at the additional zoning, which shows TRN3, which shows the mixed use 1 and mixed use 2, you can see in red where I highlighted each of the occasions in which it would create a conflict. We'd either have to get a variance, staff approval, or even ask for a more intense zone.
Gotcha. In the UGC project?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you had the opportunity to share these concerns with staff?
We have, and we've actually provided full drawings of those projects in the past. We know staff has reviewed.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Turson? Mr. Anderson?
Justin, hopefully you're aware that nothing's getting equivalency mapped to TRN3, that'll be a new zone. There's no equivalency mapping to the TRN. So any TRN regulations would be irrelevant to any current zone unless you specifically wanted to go to them. But I know Dan can talk a little bit more about the equivalency mapping. It's not our intention as a city to foist any zone in the equivalency mapping onto any one piece of property. So I'm sure that we would work with you to salvage that one project and make sure it was the right zone with the right variances. We want C&E to continue building, but nothing will be equivalency mapped to anything TRN.
Correct.
Yes. Dan, do you want to add anything about the equivalency mapping and where we are with that?
Sure. So, obviously the intent of adopting this zoning ordinance and moving forward is to keep entitlements and that are in place today. We don't want to disadvantage any property owner, any developer. So if there's something that's underway or in process, we absolutely want to work with those individual property owners and developers and make sure that we can try to make their projects successful. So it's absolutely the intention that we are not going to equivalency map something that's not equivalent. Having said that, there absolutely is going to be issues like this project. It's the first time we've seen it, but I've talked about it. But I think we absolutely should, start with this one and every other project that might have some kind of issue like this. There's going to be a few. There's going to be some projects that are going to be caught midstream. And I think we're going to have to work with city attorney's office, work with, with Chris and the council and others to make sure we get something that's equivalent. But I think it's absolutely our intention to maintain everybody's current legal zoning and try to move forward.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
For Mr. Tierson, actually. So just to clarify, you might have already said this. Is this a project that is currently under consideration?
The project shown in front of you is currently under construction. So it would not be impacted because it already has entitlements because it has gone through the process and gotten built.
But this is
other
a
potential
product
projects
you're
that would
looking
use
at
the
doing
same
again.
prototype of housing that we've used many times could be impacted. And
Right.
I wanted to demonstrate what those impacts could be. This has been an ongoing conversation with the RPA, and I wanted to say, Mike, obviously I've brought my opinions before about some additional issues to address within the zoning code, but on this particular one, I wanted to say there are some small changes that are relatively unimpactful on a large scale that impact individual incremental projects within community development that could be impactful. Things like reducing the requirements for the square footage for multifamily per unit from 950 square foot to 750, allowing that if you have parking that's on an alley, you don't have to do the landscape island requirement, allowing us to keep the additional parking requirements for on-street parking, things of that nature.
Thank you, Mr. Tierson. Any other questions?
Sorry. We are trying to move forward with council and planning commission and get this version of the red line adopted. We will absolutely start the next day working on amendments to try to improve if there's something that's not quite right in this draft. I think there's going to be disagreements over probably some of those edits at some point. But I think we appreciate C&E's role here in the city. And we definitely want to support affordable housing. And so we'll do everything we can to try to work around what these problems are.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to propose that we have a planning commission work session for the people on the planning commission who are here and not to come in either November or December to start talking about changes to the zoning code that we can adopt in January.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion. We have a motion to approve this resolution, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then second, text amendment is a resolution to adopt Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance. The proposed ordinance requires certain building materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Dan, do you have any staff updates?
No, but I do want to just again, thank you so much, Planning Commission, for everything you've been doing the past year. I know this has been an unusual kind of an adoption just process, but every jurisdiction, everything's going to be different. We have to kind of go with the best process we can to include as many stakeholders and being transparent with the public and everyone else. I just want to thank Karen Rennick is not here, but Karen Rennick has done an amazing job. Brian Schultz, Emily, Darian, everybody in development services is just really been doing a great job since I've been here.
Commissioner Anderson's helpful, and LDO. It's been a long process.
And I think we're still going to have some bumps, but I think we're going to be in a much better place in a few months once we kind of work through some of these. And our commitment is that we should not sit on any ordinance permanently. We should be constantly updating them and tweaking them and trying to improve them. So I'll just stop with that. Again, thank you so much for everything.
Mr. Chairman, I have one thing. It was not on the agenda. Last month, we were supposed to be voting on officers. Didn't have wasn't too many people here last month, so we need to do that today. Election of chairman and vice chairman of the Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a proposed slate of officers? Well, thank you, Mr. Anderson. We have a motion and it was seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. I'm opposed. No, I'm just kidding. Motion carries. And then we need a vice
vice
president
chair.
as well. Vice chair.
Yeah, I was only going to mention, Brian, that, or to the commission that I do believe in maybe sharing the wealth and based on maybe, I know Nathan set in did really well last meeting. And so there may be some opportunities for him to sit in on some. So I was only going to offer that if it's not a representing County Mayor Weston Waupun, it's an individual, which I think is what they or what Brian kind of communicated, that I would only offer maybe somebody else's nomination up for that.
Yeah, the vice chair role is not tied to a particular position. It was tied to Todd and not his position. So if anybody filled in for Todd, that person did automatically not become chairman in case the chairman was out.
So I know I have been historically here. I'm one of the few probably that gets paid to be here because I'm kind of still on the clock, at least until 4. So I do understand that. And I, of course, tried to make myself available for Chairman Collier, but I would only offer that. I know we're a little light on commissioners today. I don't know. We could push it to the beginning of next meeting if that's more appropriate, just to get a little bit more involvement. But
are you opposed to it being you?
Well, no, I mean, I won't, but I mean, I do anticipate, I think I've told everybody this. We've sort of created a development services department to kind of be the liaison with planning, and Nathan's been here sort of most months. And so I just know I was going to actually have some conversations with him and both the mayor that there may be some opportunities for that in the future. So I was going to take myself off of that just so it took away from that issue. But you can do it at any time.
You're not retiring, right?
Well, no, possibly if that scenario happens the way you're anticipating it, you are not serving as on the planning commission anymore, we can make the change then.
That's correct.
And then, we've been able to make impromptu changes just recently with both you and I being out.
Yeah.
Councilman Ledford
Yeah,
serving.
which
I would
Chairman
nominate.
Collier is very rarely out.
And it's about the bylaws basically state like we did last month. If both chairman and vice chair out, it's up to the chairman. He can appoint somebody to be the chairman, which we did last month. Councilman Ledford was nominated.
I nominate Todd Lehman as vice chair. It has been seconded.
I would like to also make a nomination. Actually, Todd, I liked your idea, but we're a little light with members. If I wouldn't be opposed to postponing this conversation till next month. Given that we have so much going on and a majority of our cases are in the city of Chattanooga, I would actually nominate Mr. Chris Anderson for vice chairman.
Okay.
Vice president.
Then you want to wait till next month?
But
there may be a search.
But I wouldn't mind some other voices being here as well to be able to discuss.
Well, let me because instead of removing my name, if it's more, I mean, I'll remove my name from consideration if we want to vote for Commissioner Anderson today. I'm more than supportive of that, or we can wait till next month.
I'm fine with that.
Next month?
No, I mean, Todd's already expressed some concerns. If there's nomination for Mr. Anderson, I'm fine with that. So we have a nomination for Mr. Anderson that has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Congratulations. Somebody needs to notify somebody that Mr. Anderson is now has been nominated for vice president. That seems like that's a big deal.
I would
Yes.
have made some really fun comments about that, but I won't.
Since I said so many things about our staff, I just really, really want to thank Todd Lehman and Nathan Janeway. They do absolutely amazing support. Todd also chairs our MPO executive committee and is just a great partner. And so I just really appreciate, all the work we do together. Thank you, Todd.
Sure. We do have a time on our agenda for public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any?
This may not be the right thing, but I've been sitting here thinking about this. And if it's not the right time, you can tell me, but it's got to do with the connectivity. And I don't want you to hear me. I'm not opposed to being connected, but as we've heard 2 or 3 cases here, it's like, if that very case that we approved, had I done that, if I'd have drawn the plans and connected into that subdivision, but not put a yellow sign up there, they'd be stringing, I'd be in a world of hurt from the neighbors because I didn't inform them. I think at the very least, we ought to consider some method if we're going to force connectivity that we need to tell the people that whether it's sending a letter to them or, something between this and the commission meeting so that they have some understanding of, and I'm very familiar with that particular, that drains a lot. That's Mountain Shadows, Shadow Ridge, all use that. And we built a massive traffic circle to handle all those people coming into that roundabout. And what you're going to do is shortcut that, which is fine. I'm not opposed to that. But people ought to be aware of it in that neighborhood and the one that we're connecting, not the ones that in the new neighborhood that we haven't built yet. That's fair to do it. But the one we're connecting into, and they had no idea, no plans to be here, nothing. I think we should at least come up with some mechanism to inform them that we just decided that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Just a comment, Commissioner, and I hear you and I agree with you. We've been using that as a conversation because we've got to start having a conversation about connectivity. And just for the record, we didn't require anything. We recommended a condition to County Commission. And we've had that same discussion on a prior project that was probably, Nathan, within the last probably 4 to 5 months. So to your point, there'll be plenty of conversation. I will agree to make sure we have plenty of conversation, especially to the commissioner in that district who's very vocal and very engaged. And so there'll be a lot of discussion. And again, like I said it before, it's a conversation when we're building public infrastructure and we're connecting, that we're not continuing to just completely disconnect our systems. And so we made a recommendation today, and I would only tell you we'll make effort to make sure that's communicated, and legislatively they'll make a decision either to agree today or not.
We need standards. I agree with you. I mean, it seems like we have hard time agreeing here.
Aren't you working on them, Dan? Y'all are working on them, right? Subdivision regs.
That has been an issue connecting subdivisions, even with right of way that's already designated, and it's just never unopened. I mean, folks don't. Yeah.
For sure, I have one more quick update. We did not bring the parking sticker for you to get out. So if you pay, just let us know. We can reimburse. I know. Dan,
You could just give us the credit card and we can
Dan's
just
gonna
pay
pay,
to get
so
out.
he'll be out there.
Can I get approval of the Planning Commission minutes of June 10th, 2024?
Yeah, I'll only add, I mean, just because he usually says it after my name. Of course, Nathan said in last month, and it typically, just like it talks about Mr. Anderson representing the city mayor, usually has a designation after my name. So I would only add that probably need to say representing County Mayor Wong. Thank you.
We have a motion with corrections, and it was seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Payne? Thank you.
He's got those. Yeah. Still didn't.